The road from Kabul to Torkham on the Afghan-Pakistan border is a story of pleasure and peril. As we drove listening to Pashto music and radio static, I took these photos to try and capture a flavour of it. A few years ago, the Afghans turned a dust track into one of the country's few highways, since it was a vital trade route. A trip that used to take 10 hours now lasts just 4. And business was bustling all along the way. Trucks carrying goods from Pakistan snaking around the mountains, sometimes grinding to a halt in the heavy traffic. Local bazaars with long lines of shops that sell exactly the same things, like pomegranates or spare car parts. And young businessmen with their catch of the day. I turned down the fish, but eventually gave in to a persistent sugarcane salesman. In my fleeting encounters along the way, some people seemed interested and pleased to see me and my camera lens. Others weren't so sure. It was a route shared by diverse and colourful travellers, using methods of transport that ranged from the medieval to the more modern. The trucks seemed to be competing with each other for the most dazzling appearance. Those without wheels went about their business on foot. In between the main cities, tiny detached villages are seamlessly woven into the scenery as if part of a sweeping tapestry. And locals sit in the midday sun, seemingly unconcerned by all around them. At every turn, there were scenes of desolate beauty, but also reminders of the area's violence. Everyone who makes this trip is taking a risk. There are frequent accidents. One happened right in front of me. But even still, some don't seem too fazed by the dangers. And beyond the stunning surface of the landscape lies something more sinister. The road is regularly attacked by militants. The deep, narrow gorge surrounded by sheer mountainsides is a natural place for ambushes. A suicide bomber wounded several people outside this American base, Camp Phoenix, 2 days before we followed the same route. A few days before that, this isolated police post nestled in the valley came under attack from the Taliban, who came pouring down from the surrounding hills in broad daylight. Military convoys driving this road are not allowed to stop except in an emergency. But at least during my drive, the threat never materialized, leaving the scenery to shimmer undisturbed. After the serenity of my journey came the frenzy of my destination. Torkham is technically a border crossing, but the frontier between Afghanistan and Pakistan is so vague that it felt more like an enormous checkpoint. The mountains in the background mark the gateway to the Khyber Pass in Pakistan. About 40,000 people cross between the two countries here every day. Some of the elderly are too frail to walk by themselves. Many of the young have to smuggle flour and scrap metal from Pakistan to Afghanistan several times a day to help support their families. And like the route that leads to it, this place is fraught with danger. There were 2 suicide bombings at the crossing in the past 3 months. Whenever I stayed in one spot for too long, the border police would usher me away, making explosion gestures with their hands, as if to say I might attract a suicide bomber. For me, the danger of the journey and the city was brief. But for the people who travel the road and cross the border every day, it's constant.